Under questioning yesterday, the AFP Deputy Commissioner Ian McCartney defended how the case was handled.
The person was on the path to radicalisation long before we became involved, long before Victoria Police came involved.
It was the AFP who recommended he become a sniper and a suicide bomber.
Senator.
It was the AFP who put that in his mind. A 13-year-old boy with autism with an IQ of 71. Is anyone held to account for this? This obscene abuse of power and authority.
Well, the Greens Senator there, David Shoebridge, joins us now. Senator, good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Yeah, morning, Leslie.
A lot of viewers and listeners would have heard this coverage on the ABC and The Guardian on the weekend about this story. But for those who might have missed it, can you just give us a quick recap of how this child became known to police in the first place?
Well, this 13-year-old boy who had a low IQ, an IQ of no more than 71 and autism, had shown some interest in ISIS. It really troubled his parents. His parents were from a non-English speaking background, and they went to the police. And they went to the police asking for help and saying, look, we're worried about our son. He seems to be looking at some of these images online. We're concerned about some of the things he's saying. Can you help us? And initially, the police set up a counter-violent extremism, a CVE course, which is meant to be steering particularly young people away from any moves towards extremism. But then within a handful of months, it went from that to a covert police operation where the AFP and the Deputy Commissioner you saw in that exchange, the Deputy Commissioner approved a covert operation against a 13-year-old boy with autism, where an operative played two different guises and actively encouraged him towards extremism, put in this child's head the idea of becoming a suicide bomber, put in this child's head the idea of becoming a sniper, started introducing extremist language to him and drove him on a pathway towards extremism. And when the transcripts of those exchanges were reviewed by the magistrate was horrified and very unusually ordered a permanent stay on the proceedings and was deeply critical of the AFP's conduct.
Yeah, Ian McCartney yesterday was saying things like it was not our intent or purpose for that to happen. Was there anything out of yesterday's hearing that gave you any comfort?
Well, no, I think worse than no comfort. I was deeply troubled by a complete lack of remorse, a complete lack of regret, and seeking to justify, in that case, the second most senior person in the AFP, seeking to justify doing a covert operation against a 13-year-old boy with autism whose parents had come to the police seeking help and wanted to direct him on a pathway away from extremism. And also, I think we should put this in context. They charged this boy with a series of charges, and the AFP only charge less than 400 people a year. With their thousands and thousands of police and additional resources, they only charge less than 400 people a year, and they sought to justify that in the estimates hearing by saying they only go after high-value targets. And when I said to them, how could you identify a 13-year-old boy with autism whose parents were looking for help as a high-value target, we just got this sort of wall of indifference.
Senator, the AFP put out a statement saying that they are going to appear at Senate estimates next week, where further information is going to be provided about this complex or the complex terrorism environment. Clearly, it is a world that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but is your point still now that someone needs to be held accountable for what happened?
Well, absolutely. We had an AFP officer, instead of taking a child away from extremism, the magistrate found that what the AFP did was utterly destructive of the efforts of countering violent extremism, utterly destructive of the efforts that the family and a counsellor were making to take the child away from extremism. We had the AFP driving a child towards extremism. And we had the second most senior member of the AFP signing off on a covert warrant against a 13-year-old boy with autism and a low IQ when his parents had come to them for help. This is the kind of action that drives a wedge between communities and the police. It does everything wrong. And I found it extraordinary that at best we're getting a series of internal reviews. Police investigating police here will not hold anyone to account.
Just very quickly before you go, Senator, can you tell us how the boy is doing now?
Well, I've only spoken at one remove I haven't spoken directly to the family. I've heard through the lawyers, indirectly through the lawyers, that obviously, you know, it's deeply upsetting and troubling, as any family would be upset and troubled by this. I haven't spoken directly to the family, but I can only imagine what a family feels like. You put your trust in the system, you put your trust in police, you reach out looking for help, and instead your child is driven down a pathway of extremism, brought before the courts, charged, and the whole life is turned upside down. It's actually one of the most obscene abuses of power that I have seen in my time in Parliament.